Welcome to the second in a series of videos designed to help you jam with pentatonic scales. Here's a quick recap of the highlights from the first video. Like the first video, we'll remain in the key of G throughout this video. And in the first video, we had 3 simple patterns. Here's the G pattern. It outlines that G chord. When you go to C, it outlines the C chord. When you go to D, it outlines the D chord, but you want to think of your D chord as being this, not this, because then you'll have your fingers in line, starting on the open 4th string. We gave you a few simple tips to make your jamming sound good. One of them being, as you can hear the chord change happening, try to target a note in the chord that you're going to. So we'll start out in G. Time to go to C. And then you're kind of just outlining the octave of the chord that you're on. Let's now extend each of these patterns. Beginning with the D pattern, we can add notes on strings 6 and 5. With that new pattern, let's talk about copying ideas from one scale to the next. So if you have this as a G tag lick, you can easily switch that to C. Each time it outlines the chord. When you go to D, you actually are going to get those notes on that lower octave. As we extend the scale for G, we will be moving into another position on the neck. And so a lot of people think of this little 5-note pattern just being an octave above the notes you already had in the lower part of the scale. And notice that we connected the 2 patterns by sliding into the new pattern. A similar thing will happen when we add notes to our C pattern. And you don't actually have to slide in, it's just a nice way to connect the patterns. So here's the new pattern. There's a C root there, or the C root is here. So if you want to get back into this pattern, you can slide back to it, or just pick your finger up. So let's now talk about some licks that come out of these extended patterns. Here's a real famous bluegrass lick. The slide going up is a little slower than it is when you go back. Often when playing against a C chord, you can hammer on the notes with your middle finger right here. Gives you a nice full sound because all the chord tones are resonating. Here's another lick that plays out of the new position that we're adding to our scale. So there we had a slide and we had a pull off. Pull off. Resolving on this C note. So you can just be noodling through these patterns, switching to the new pattern when the chord changes. but your picking is going to sound a little more polished if you can throw in an occasional lick. So on the G and C patterns, we were hammering on notes when you had two notes on the same string. If you think of the D pattern and start on the highest note, you can pull off on pairs of notes. So you can get some pretty cool licks off of that. Just like our previous patterns could be thought of as being played against these chord shapes, the new patterns, the G, is really playing against what looks like an F chord just moved up 2 frets, F, F sharp, G. And the C pattern is playing across the top of this bar C chord. So while we may not play those actual patterns for our chords, we can be thinking those when we need to jump up and find those notes in a hurry. Remember that the reason to learn to jam with pentatonics is so that you can fake a solo on any song, not really having to know the melody. There's a song called Bury Me Beneath the Willow where it turns out the melody is actually out of these pentatonic scales. One extra note, but the predominance of the notes can be found in these pentatonic patterns, so you also have that advantage beyond just jamming. So the primary reason you want to learn to jam with pentatonics is so you can fake a break. Maybe you don't know the melody to Bury Me Beneath the Willow, but you can play some great sounds that sound good against the chord progression, which is right here, and is the most common chord progression in all of country and bluegrass music. As I did in the first video, I now will improvise a solo using both the old patterns and the new patterns, and this will give you an idea of how it's done. Here's a reminder of the things that I'll be thinking of as I'm improvising my solo.